Thank Hashem that we're able to learn every day. In the schus of our learning, we should have the base of Migdash, and it should be well. Okay, we're going to start Yud on the top, on the second line. Rav Ada Karichna Kamid Rav Kana Mishmei Rava. I guess I should go back and just explain what happened there. Levi tells Rebbe that why are there only 15 cases in the Mishnah? I think there could be 16. The Rebbe responds, apparently he doesn't have a brain in his skull. What was he even thinking? What are you thinking? He's talking to him. He says, are you thinking about Anusas Aviv? Anusas Aviv, that would have been a case. Yeah. So let's do it just so we have this case clear. So let's pick these other names. Let's say Esav. Creative. Esav rapes a woman. Doesn't have to be rape. Doesn't marry her. And she becomes pregnant. She has a child. Now, Esav's son is Eliphaz. Eliphaz goes and marries his father's victim, that woman. He marries that woman. Okay, poor Eliphaz dies. Yeah, the one who was raped. Yeah. Eliphaz marries the woman, the victim, the woman that was raped. Now that's called an Anusas Aviv. Now Anusas Aviv is a machlekes Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanon if you're allowed to marry that woman. Anyway, Eliphaz wasn't so frum. He didn't go like Rabbi Yehuda. He marries that woman. Okay, then he dies. Okay, now the child is the brother of Eliphaz because they share the same father, Esav. So does the child have to do yibum on his mother? That would have been a perfect case for the Mishnah. Follow? Follow? Do it again. Yeah. Let's do this again. Esav rapes a woman. Okay. Eliphaz goes and takes that woman and marries her. Now, from the rape, there was a child. Okay. Now, Eliphaz is now married to this woman, and he dies. Well, no, it's Esav and this woman's child. No. Oh, that's you saying Eliphaz's stepchild. Oh, yes. Eliphaz's stepchild, but it's also his half brother. They share the same father. So if that's the case, then when Eliphaz dies, the brother would have to do yibum on the mother. And that's not possible. So that would have been a 16th case of the Mishnah, which we didn't get into. So the Gemara says, that's a machlekes. We're not dealing with machlekes. It says we're not dealing with machlekes. We have these other machlekes in here, there, and there's machlekes, and somehow we get out of it. It's not. That wasn't the case. But we're not dealing with the machlekes cases. So we introduced an issue. We are dealing with machlekes cases because Reb Chia came along and he introduced a case which is called Achayzik Ukase. He says, he said that every single case of the Mishnah, all 15 cases, it is a possibility that if I even get started, that if two brothers, it has to be, the only way to do this is there's 4 brothers, this is what we learned yesterday, that if there's 4 brothers Oh, that was with Reb Shimon. That was the case with Reb Shimon. But before we get to the Reb Shimon case, that was Achib Shleiha Beilamai. They had to be born after. But before that case, we had a case like this that 4 brothers. Let me take a look. The case would be like this. They were born later. You're right. Reuven, let's say, rapes a woman and has a child. Shimon rapes the same woman and has a child, a girl. Okay. Levi and Yehuda go and marry those girls. They're nieces. Marry their niece. They're allowed to marry a niece. The father is. These girls are sisters. They're sisters from the mother, not from the father. They're sisters from the mother. Then Levi and Yehuda pass away. Now, Levi's wife was actually Reuven's daughter, and Yehuda's wife is actually Shimon's daughter. So Reuven cannot do Yibam on Levi's wife, let's say Leah, and Shimon cannot do Yibam on Yehuda's wife, let's say Rachel, because that's their daughter. So we said in that case that it's not considered achais zikukasa, even though they're sisters, and that would have been a problem to do Yibam on someone that's it's like it's similar to achais ishte. You can't marry your wife's sister, but over here it's not really the wife's sister. It's similar to the wife's sister. It's achais zikukasa. But we said that every single case of the Mishnah, we just did the case of Bitai, of the daughter, but we can go through each of those cases of the Mishnah and come out with a possibility of Asur Lazeh, Muteris Lazeh, even though they're sisters. We could work it out. The problem was, in order to work it out, we had to have a case with Machlekasin. And which case was that? That was Eishes Achiv Shleiha Bailamai. The only way that case would work is if we would accept the opinion of Reb Shimon that holds that in certain cases, the new brother can actually marry the wife of a brother that had passed away. If the Yibam was done before he was born, then it's not considered Achiv Shleiha Bailamai. Everyone would agree if he's born before the Yibam is performed that she's forbidden because he wasn't alive when the husband was alive. But if he was born after the Yibam, and then this new husband, Shimon or whatever, passes away, and Yisachar and Zebulun are born, so then it could work. And if we want Reb Chia to be part of the Mishnah, we're going to have to accept that he's following only one opinion. If we want Reb Chia's, and that would be a machlekes. So the Gemara then concluded, Rebbe Hani Klali Leslie. Rebbe doesn't hold of those statements of Reb Chia, that it's going to fit into the Mishnah. Gemara says now, Rabada Karichna Kamid Rav Kanam Mishmei Rav Alayla Misleila Rebbe Hani Klali. Actually, Rebbe does hold of Reb Chia. We're back with all of those cases, all those complicated cases. And Vachi Kamerlei, and this is what he's telling him. You see, what did Levi want to introduce into the Mishnah? Another case. He said he wanted to introduce Ima Yanusas Aviv. Remember the case of Imay and Nusus Aviv? That's Esav's Esav rapes a woman and has a child, a boy. Eliphaz marries the woman that the victim of his father, and then he dies. Now his half brother should do yibum, but we can't because it's his mother. Yeah. So the problem is, Ima Yanusas Aviv, B'choda Mishkachas La, B'tarti Like Mishkachas La. Okay, we're gonna have to switch the names of it because it's gonna get too complicated for us. The Gemara switches the names. It says like this: we're trying to fit this into Reb Chia. What was Reb Chia's case? Two sisters marry two brothers, and then there's another two brothers that can't do yibum on both of them, but because they can do yibum on one, then it's going to be acceptable. On only one, it's going to be acceptable. That was Reb Chia's case. So, but it says by the case of Imay Anusa Saviv, the father rapes a woman, and then there's going to be children, and one of those children is going to end up needing to marry his mother. So the Gemara is saying now it's not going to fit. Why? It's the Gemara spells it out. The case is like this. Let's say Yaakov rapes Rachel. This is not a good example. I forget these names, but it doesn't have to be anas really. It could be he. As it wasn't. He has a relationship that wasn't marriage with Rachel and Leah. Now, Rachel and Leah give birth to Levi and Yehuda. Well, Shimon, Reuven and Shimon then go ahead and marry Rachel and Leah. Okay. Reuven passes away and Shimon passes away. They have two brothers from Yaakov, from their father. That's Levi and Yehuda. Their mothers is Rachel and Leah, which is now their Yevamos. See, Reuven lives with Rachel. Yaakov lives with Rachel and Leah, has two sons, Levi and Yehuda. Reuven and Shimon marry Rachel and Leah and pass away. Then Levi and Yehuda are now the Yavam to their own mothers. Okay, so l'chayr should fit because Levi can't do Yibam with Leah because that's his mother. So fine, he'll do it with Rachel. And Yehuda can't do with Rachel because that's his mother. So fine, so it fits exactly into Reb Chia's case. The only problem is Achoisa shehi yevimta mishkachas la. They are sisters, but asur lezem muteres lezeh le mishkachas. Probably la. It's the base. It's hard enough as is. Throw in Gersayis here. What's the base? Muteres lezeh le mishkachas la. Okay. There's one slight problem. One slight problem with this case is that Leah and Rachel are sisters. And if you want to tell me that Levi is going to be able to do Yibam with Rachel, but not with Leah, because Leah is his mother, then he can't do Yibam on Rachel either. Because Rachel is his mother's sister, it's his aunt. And you're not allowed to marry your aunt. So it doesn't fit. It's not going to work out. It'll never work out. At least that part. This part won't work. So therefore, that's why when Rebbe was telling Levi, you want to introduce that case You can't introduce that case because I don't have Reb Chia. I don't. It's not going to fit with Reb Chia, and we are accepting Reb Chia's. The way Reb Chia tells us that every single case of the Mishnah has to be able to apply Asur Lazeh, Beis Achayis, Asur Lazeh, Muteres Lazeh, it's not going to fit because it's going to end up being his mother's sister, which would be which won't be. And the Beis Nachriyas Anas. Okay, if Yaakov doesn't have this relationship with Rachel and Leah, he has it with two other women, not sisters.
So Nachrius doesn't mean non-Jews.
No, Nachrius means strangers. Let's say I don't know, Chana and Penina, two wives. They're not related, but they're not wives. So in this case, it's not. And then Reuven and Shimon marry Chana and Penina, and Levi and Yehuda are the sons of Yaakov's relationship with Chana and Penina. They're not related. They have the same father, but Chana and Levi and Yehuda have the same father, but Chana and Penina are not sisters. So then, I can have a case where Levi can only have Yibam with one of them, and Yehuda can only have Yibam with one of them because he can't have Yibam with his mother. However, but part of the Reb Chia statement was that it was talking about sisters. That was the whole point of Reb Chia. That he can't do Yibam on one of them because the other one, we can't do the Yibam on either of them because they're sisters. And then the way out of that was because one of them is a close relation to him, so then he's permitted to the other one and has no zika to the sister. That was the whole point. And over here, they're not sisters. Rav Ashi goes back. He says, okay, now we'll drop. Rebbe does not hold of Reb Chia at all. And Rebbe actually thinks that our Mishnah is dealing with Machlekesen. Now we're left with Levi's conversation with him. So why doesn't it say 16 cases in the Mishnah? If we can accept the Machlekes, we can go back to that Alifas and Esav case and add Imai Shehi Anusas Aviv. So why do you tell him? It appears that he doesn't have a brain in his skull. My time so why don't you look carefully in the Mishnah? The Masnisin Reb Yehudi. Our Mishnah, I would have said that our Mishnah would say a case that's a machlekes. Rebbe has no problem with that. We could have a machlekes. We could follow Reb Shimon and all of this. We just have one problem. That who is our Mishnah? It's Reb Yehuda. Damar Banusas Aviv. The Asar Banusas Aviv. You see, the only way that case would work, remember, Esav rapes a woman and has a child, and then Eliphaz comes along and marries the woman that his father had raped. Rabbi Yehuda holds that Eliphaz is not allowed to marry that woman. So when Eliphaz dies, he was never allowed to marry that woman. There's no yibum there. That's the way we're. Eliphaz cannot marry that woman, so that case is impossible because we're following Rabbi Yehuda. In other words, we would have said a machlekes. The only thing is that this is Rabbi Yehuda's Mishnah, and Rabbi Yehuda holds that case doesn't work. The Ketani, where do you see this? Because the next Mishnah on Daf Yud Gimel says Sheisha Reis Chamurs Me'elop Neshem Nesuas Lacherim Tzareseim Mutaris. We have 6 women that are impossible to have the case of Yibam because they would never be allowed to marry the person's brother. They would have to marry out. What would that be? Imai, Eishes Aviv, Achais Aviv. It goes through 6 cases there, which those are, remember we said like this, that Yibam, if you can't do Yibam on one of the wives, then you can't do Yibam on the other one as well, the Tzara. However, if there is a person married to a woman not the person's brother. Just if there's a person that's married to a woman that's your relative, whatever it is, and he has another wife, and that fellow passes away. It's permissible to marry the other wife, right? It was only by Yibam that the tzara was also. Now, because these cases are impossible to be married to the person's brother, for example, you have two brothers. The father's wife can never be married to either of those brothers. And so there's never going to be a case where you're going to say, oh, he can't do Yibam because it's his father's wife. What do you mean? His brother was never allowed to marry her if it's his father's wife. No.
That was the case.
No, it
applies to any relationship, not just valid recognized.
it has to be Kedushin Taifsin. Let's do it like that. It has to be Kedushin Taifsin. Yeah. Okay. Now the Gemara goes through, but 1 second. We didn't mention Anusas Aviv. So my imai, when you said over there in that Mishnah, imai, ilayman is suas aviv, if it's talking about the father's wife, the father's wife, hainoeshes aviv, then that's the next case. Elalav anusas aviv. Rather, when it says imai, it must be talking about not his father's wife, because it says his father's wife, the next one. It must be his mother is because his father raped that woman. And then his brother ended up marrying that woman, and his brother's not allowed to marry that woman. That's what we're saying. That they have to marry out. They can't marry. The brother would never be allowed to marry that woman. Not to the brothers. Man shamat dislei haisvara. Who holds of this? Rabbi Yehuda, the Aser Banusa Saviv. This is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda that forbids Anusas Aviv, and that's why that's not one of the cases in the Mishnah. Okay, that's very interesting. What we did over here, we went back and forth like extremes. Is Rebbe accepting Reb Chia's cases? Is he not accepting? First we say, oh, Rebbe doesn't accept Reb Chia's cases because that would be a machlekes. Now we're saying, then we said, Rebbe does accept Reb Chia's cases, and that's specifically why he didn't take it, because it wouldn't fit perfectly with Reb Chia, because they wouldn't be achayis. And now we're saying, Rav Ashi says, no, Rebbe's not accepting Reb Chia's cases. Leilam Leslie the Rebbe Haniklali, and he would have said machlekesen. And Rav Ashi has to say Leilam Leslie. Rabbi Aniklali. I don't know why Rav Ashi has to say that. Once he's saying that he would have said machlekesen, but he was not going to say machlekes because Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold of it. So then we have the answer anyway. I'm not sure why it's restricted to that. That la'ilam leslie the Rabbi Aniklali. Because that's what Rashi's answering. Rashi's saying, don't say that it's because of Reb Chia that Rebbe didn't say that. In other words, it's not Reb Chia that's causing Rebbe not to say Levi's case. The reason why Rebbe isn't saying Levi's case is because it's Rabbi Yehuda that's talking here. Amalei Rabbeinu la Rav Ashi. The Rabbi Yehuda nami mishkachasla. Okay. Ravina tells to Rav Ashi, this is what he's saying. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it's possible. Why? Di'i avar v'nasiv. Let's say Eliphaz. It's not such a ben Torah. His father Esav rapes this woman. Rabbi Yehuda does not allow him to marry that woman, but he did it anyway. Okay. Now, Eliphaz dies. Yibam cannot be performed by the brother that happens to be the son of the Yevama. Right? So even though the marriage was not allowed, how did we get out of Levi's case? Said because Rabbi Yehuda doesn't allow that marriage. Eliphaz is not allowed to marry that Anusa Saviv. But Ravina is introducing the possibility that maybe he didn't listen to the law and he did marry her. And Kedushin Taifsin, B'diavad, right? Kedushin Taifsin, because it's only Nisr Lav. It's not a Karis. If it's an Nisr Lav, then Kedushin Taifsin. The marriage is a valid marriage. You just don't know. It's just hard to find a rabbi to perform the ceremony. But they would be considered married. Then when he dies, then the laws of Yibam kick in, and because it's his mother, he can't do Yibam. That's exactly the cases of our Mishnah. So the Gemara answers, or Rav Ashi answers, the E like Tani. We're not talking about the what ifs. The E is the what ifs. Let's say, okay, right. Amalei Rav Ashi Rav Kana. Forget about the what ifs. It's not even without the prohibition of that marriage. We introduce another case, which is a what if, but apparently it's a little bit better than the first one, as you'll see. It goes like this: Yaakov Anas Kalasai. Yaakov rapes his daughter-in-law. Who's his daughter? Who's his daughter? Who's his son? His son is Reuven. Okay, and his daughter-in-law, I don't know her name. Whatever her name is. He raped her. And Vahilid Mimena Ben. And now there's a child from Yaakov and this daughter-in-law. Umeis Reuven b'lei banim. Reuven has no children. His wife does. And the child of his wife happens to be Reuven's brother from the father, from Yaakov. Yeah. Well, they waited. Reuven was out of town. Reuven was out of town for 12 months, right? And comes back, and there's a child there. It was Yaakov. Okay, yeah, you follow Moshe. Yaakov. Okay. Reuven's married. Okay, everything's fine, but they don't have children. Anyway, Yaakov has a relationship with his daughter-in-law, and there's a child that's born. Now, Reuven passes away. So this child is now the Yavam, because he's the brother of Reuven, because he's the child of Yaakov. The child should do Yibam on his mother. So it's real. It is Anusa Saviv. Okay. And that's a regular. That would be a case that Levi could have told us. Now, it's a funny Gemara because you see, we were just saying, what did we gain by this case? We had the case before with Eliphaz marrying. We had the same story. But we said, oh no, we're not talking about someone that went against the rabbis and married. Well, let me tell you, Yaakov did not follow. So anyway, what does this leave us with? It leaves us with also a di'i. What if? The only thing is that the marriage was not a di'i. That's what's changing over here. Over there, Eliphaz got into a marriage that was not an acceptable marriage in the first place, but only after the fact it was. Over here, Reuven was in a perfect marriage. Kosher marriage, perfectly. L'chatchila. Okay. Amarle ba'chesed da'atera kamayri ba'chesed d'isura like kamayri. B'chesed Torah kamayri, b'chesed Yisrael le kamayri. B'chesed Torah. I think what it means to say is that we're not dealing with a forbidden relationship on how they got into this. We weren't dealing with prohibited relations in the whole Mishnah. In the whole Mishnah, there were no cases of like incest of some sort. Right, they were all just regular relatives that had kosher marriages and everything was set up. But now you're creating this case that doesn't match the other 15 cases of the Mishnah, and that's why that case wasn't there. Okay, that would be the response of Rav Ashi, that we're only dealing with the regular case. Ba'afal pikein badaka Levi b'masnisin. Levi, he added to the Mishnah. The Tani Levi imai pa'amim paiteres terasa pa'amim paiteres terasa. He actually puts in that case of imai, and he says sometimes the mother will actually exempt the tzara as well. Ketzad. When is that case? Sometimes not, but sometimes yes. Let's say the father is married to this woman, and then father dies or divorces her, and one of the brothers takes her. V'nisas lachav may aviv, and marries her. Umeis, and then the brother dies. Zui imay she'in paiteres tzarasa. See, the problem is, Eishes Av, the father's legal wife, is forbidden to any of the children to marry the Karis. So there was no marriage there. So let's say one of the children does marry her. The marriage is totally not. It's not valid. It's not a valid marriage. It's not considered anything. So therefore, when this brother died, the one that took in this the father's wife, when this brother dies, there's other wives there that the brother, let's say it was Reuben that died, so Shimon can go and marry those other wives. There's a woman there that's asura to Shimon, and therefore the tzara should be put. But that woman was not married. Wasn't a valid marriage. So the mother won't exempt. Let's say Reuven ends up marrying not Yaakov's wife, but he ends up marrying the woman that Yaakov had improper relations with. So then that marriage does take effect, even according to Rabbi Yehuda. Even according to Rabbi Yehuda, who doesn't allow that marriage, but it still takes effect because it's only an Isser Lav, it's not Isser Karis, because it wasn't a real marriage with the father. So then Shimon would not have to do Yibam at all because the marriage was a valid marriage for Reuven, and he wouldn't have to do Yibam not on her and not on the tzara. Even though our sages said that there's 15, Levi said we do have a 16th in this instance. Okay. Shlakish says to Rabbi Yechanan, Levi Damar Di'i Namiktani. Levi that has cases of Di'i. Di'i means if the person married in a situation where it wasn't allowed, but he did the marriage anyway. Reuven marries his father, the wife that his father had a relationship with. Levi saying that could also be an additional case to the Mishnah. let's say Reish Lakish says like this. Let's say one of the brothers passed away. Reuven passes away. So Shimon does chalitza on Reuven's wife. Doesn't want to marry. He does chalitza. And he changes his mind later. And he goes ahead. He says, "Oh, I should have married her." So he marries her. He's not allowed to. He's not allowed to marry her after he does chalitza. It's his brother's wife. You only have that one option to do yibam. If he decided to do chalitza, he's not allowed to marry her. Now, turns out that he's not allowed to marry her only with the Isser Lav, a negative prohibition, which means that if he does marry her, the Kedushin is Taifsin. Typhus. It grasps, takes effect. So, and then he dies. Levanim. What happens now to the brothers? Can the brothers do yibam? The brothers cannot do yibam because this woman was forbidden to them already from before. It's a very good case. The brothers can't do yibam, and the other wives are also exempt. Amalei lefisha ina b'tzaras tzara. Rabbi Yochanan responds that our Mishnah said that Paitras, these women, Paitras Tsarasayim, the other wives get exempt if they're married to the brother. And Tsarasayim, Adailam. Remember, it said, let's say Yibam was performed. And then the next brother passes away. So the other wives from that new marriage are also exempt because of the previous, even if it's Sarah came in, let's say Ruvain passes away. Shimon cannot do Yibam on Ruvain's wife because that was his mother-in-law, let's say. Yeah, there was no prohibition there, but he can't because that's his mother-in-law. Reuven married the mother, Shimon marries the daughter. He can't do Yibam on, okay. So what about the other wives? Those are tsaras, those are also exempt. So who does Yibam? So Levi does the Yibam. Now Levi passes away. So who did Levi marry? Not Shimon's mother, a different one of the other wives. So now, because those other wives were already exempt from Yibam, they're exempt from Yibam for Shimon. So now even Levi's other wives are also exempt because they were a tzara of a tzara, which was exempt. So now Shimon can't do on them either. And this could go on forever, adoilam, however many brothers are, this could continue. The problem with the case that Rish Lakish is suggesting is that although I have right now an exemption of Yibam, and that, why is the exemption of Yibam? Because Chalitza was performed on one of the wives. But since none of the brothers are allowed to marry that wife, so I can never get a second case of a tzara, because they can never marry. And because our Mishnah was talking about, you see, the difference is our Mishnah is talking about that there's an individual relation between one of the brothers and the wife of Reuven. Why? Because it happens to be, it's his wife's relative, mother. But here, there's a problem directly with all the brothers, because this is the chayletz, the chalutza. None of them can marry. So it can never go on. The Gemara asks, he has a better teretz. Rabbi Yochanan has a better teretz. He said a teretz to Rish Lakish because he can't do tzara, but the whole Mishnah doesn't apply because the Mishnah says that you don't have to do chalitza or yibam. And according to Rabbi Yochanan, he married a woman that's a chayve lavin. Marriage took effect. He married the chalutza. First he does chalitza, and then Shimon goes ahead and marries her afterwards, which was not allowed. Now, according to Rabbi Yochanan, the other brothers are not allowed to marry the chalutza as well, but it's only a lav. According to Rish Lakish, it was bekaris. But according to Rabbi Yochanan, it's a lot. There's another machlekes going on in the background over here. So according to Rabbi Yochanan, he could have just said that. But 1 second, it's a lav, and you have to do chalitza. When Shimon passes away, Levi is not exempt automatically because that's the chalutza of Ruvain, of Ruvain's wife. Levi is only exempt after the chalitza. And our Mishnah is talking about you're exempt automatically. So it doesn't fit with the Mishnah. So the Gemara says, Lidvarav Kamarlei. Rabbi Yochanan was saying, according to Reish Lakish, it doesn't mean yibam. It means they have to get out of the yibam with chalitza. That's what it means. Otherwise, you get into problems. According to you, it's chayvi krisis. You see, according to you that it's chayve krisis, and you don't have to do chalitza, so then why didn't it put it in the Mishnah? That's the Mishnah saying you don't have to do chalitza or yibam. It says because you don't have tsaras tzara, and our Mishnah was only cases of tsaras tzara. Itmar. Someone does chalitza and then he goes back. This is what we mentioned, that there's a machlekes Rabbi Yochanan or Rish Lakish. If someone does chalitza and then he goes back and marries her. Amar Rish Lakish says, who, the fellow himself, let's say it's Shimon in this case, that did the chalitza, ein chayev ala chalutza kares. Yeah, I saw in the Rashi the source for this. What was it? The source was, it says, Asher layivne es beis achiv, kivan shaleibana shuv layivne. Once he does chalitza, there's a negative prohibition, alav, shuv layivne, that he did not build a house, and that's it. So now he cannot build his brother's house. Okay. But the brothers, chayavan ala chalutza kares. They are chayav kares on her because she's eishes ach. So it's interesting that after Shimon does chalitza, it gets less. The prohibition now gets less. It's reduced from kares to alav. But the brothers that never did chalitza, they still have the original prohibition of eishes ach. Alatzara, but when it comes to the other wives that didn't do chalitza either, bein hu bein ach and chayav and alatzara kares, then everyone is chayav kares on those wives. Rabbi Yochanan Amar bein hu bein ach and ein chayav and la chalutza kares v'la alatzara kares. Rabbi Yochanan says that there's no more kares anymore. Once chalitza is performed, then it just becomes a shuvla yivna, and they're all in the same category of Isser Lav. My time with the Reish Lakish. What's the reason for Reish Lakish? Amar Kra, pasuk says, "Shivla yivna." In the Gemara, "Kivin shleibana shivla yivna." Once he doesn't build it, so it doesn't. He cannot go in return and build it. Iyuhu dekai b'la yivna. He's the one that doesn't go back and build. Aval echav kedekaimi kaimi. But the brothers have the old prohibition of kares kedekaimi kaimi. They remain as they were originally. It's only on himself that he has the one that he can't build, and that's the lav. Hatzara, but Allah dida. I'm sorry, it's not dida. Allah dida. It's only on that wife, dida, on her, that he has the la yivna. But the tzara, but the other wives, kaimi, you have the original prohibition of eishasach. It's his brother's wife, which is kares. Rabbi Yochanan says. What's the aleph over here? Lahahi chaletz, lahi chaletz. V'hashtekoi ala b'karis. Originally, any brother could have done chalitza, and they could have done chalitza on any of the wives. So one of them actually does the chalitza. Should they all end up being having the original prohibition? There was potential in all of them to do chalitza, and so if that's the case, all of them go under the category of shuvla yivna. This brother is just a messenger of the other brothers, and this wife is just a messenger of the other wives. So according to Rabbi Yochanan, it's all goes down to the status of just the Israelav after the chalitza. Okay, let's leave it over here.
Oh, wow, so easy.